Welcome to Mary McCorvey Experience Over Expectations podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Substack, and any place you find your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe today.
Welcome to Experience Over Expectation. I'm Mary McCorvey, and this is where we talk about what happens when life doesn't go according to plan and how that can be the beginning of something deeper, truer, and more alive. My guest today is someone who built success by learning the hard way that achievement is not fulfillment. Kevin Palmieri is the founder and host of Next Level University, a top 100 podcast reaching over 1 million listeners across 170 countries. But before all that, before the microphones, the business, and the success, I say that very quickly because that happened all at once, right? Kevin hit a moment of despair that nearly took his life. He calls it finding out that rock bottom has a basement. From that reckoning, he rebuilt everything, not by chasing perfection, but by committing to consistent growth and honest self-improvement. Kevin's story is proof that transformation is not a lightning strike. It's a daily practice of showing up, being real, and doing the work. Kevin, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Number one, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Number two, thank you so very much for having me. And number three, thank you for taking challenges and turning it into triumphs for your audience. I appreciate that perspective very much.
Well, thank
You're
you.
very
I
welcome.
really appreciate that. That is absolutely a goal of mine.
You're doing it.
So let's talk about what it takes to move from survival to purpose and how to do it, as you say, one level at a time.
I think one of the most important things that I've learned over the years is I think it probably starts with self-belief. Because I think a lot of us, so one of the questions I get asked very often is, how does somebody find their purpose?
Mm.
I think that is a trap, because I think most of us want to help a certain person accomplish or overcome a certain thing in a certain way. But when the rubber hits the road and then I say, well, how am I going to make money doing that? Or what vehicle do I deploy to do that? I think that's where a lot of people say, well, I could never do that.
Right.
So I would say it starts with setting and keeping small promises to yourself. Because when you do that, you build self-belief. And then I think you are more capable of seeing further into your own future, setting more specific goals, and then actually believing that you can accomplish them. Today, I think it probably seems like I have a very high level of self-belief. I've just done this 3,000 times. So this is the place where I feel the most comfortable.
Sure.
But for the vast majority of my life, I didn't think I could replicate any results. So I do. I think self-belief is the great, I won't even say the great equalizer because there's more to it, but it's a really good foundation to build a purpose on for sure.
Well, let's go to that moment. And actually, I'm sure it's more than one moment where you finally, as you say, discovered that rock bottom has a basement. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I was 27. I had just had the most successful financial year of my life. I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. I had what everybody thought they wanted. So the year prior, my girlfriend was a model. I had won a bodybuilding show. I had a nice car. I had all the things that everybody thinks they want, myself included. And I remember thinking, okay, I thought these external things were going to fix the internal voids that I've been running from for most of my life. I guess that isn't the way. And I ended up starting a podcast with the understanding that most of my life I had lived unconsciously. I just didn't really know what I was doing. I was just gliding through life. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So after I had that successful year and the realization that didn't fix anything, I started a podcast, which I do believe is directly connected to my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Which in theory sounds really good. But the problem is I fell in love with podcasting and adding value and self-improvement and self-awareness and personal development. But I had to keep going to this job that I started to hate because, as you know, in the beginning, there's not a line out the door of people saying, Mary, this is a wonderful idea. How much money do we need to give you so you can pursue this full time and make this your life's mission? So I had to keep going to this job it just required a bunch of travel, and I was staying up for days on end, and it just felt like this purpose, this mission, this vehicle that I had found is going to slip out of my hands. And I realized how privileged I am to actually have found this in the first place. So that led to me being in a hotel room, getting ready for work one day. I was like 6 hours away from where I lived. My alarm clock went off. I sat up. I slid to the edge of the bed. I was lacing up my work boots. And the best way to explain it is it felt like there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one was on a different station.
Wow.
It was brutal. And it's just self-doubt. One is saying, Kev, you're the kid who pumped gas at the gas station as your first job, and you cleaned bathrooms at a hospital, and you don't have an education. There's no way you're going to become more successful than this. Like, you're stuck here. If you ever left, what would your friends say? All of your friends are really proud of you because you've made something of yourself. What would your family say? You're the most successful person in your family. And then I think the loudest voice for me was, do you really think you're going to be a podcaster? Because I didn't have that self-belief at that time. And I remember sitting there on the edge of the bed thinking to myself, well, if I was just to take my life, I would take my problems with me. And that was my rock bottom basement moment, because there's really nowhere else to go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I reached out to somebody who had more belief in me than I had myself. And that is the thing that kind of got me to the next day. And the next day got a little bit better. And I kind of try to rinse and repeat that. But yeah, it was me achieving everything that I wanted externally. That didn't shift me internally at all. Then I found something that was starting to shift me internally, but the external world didn't seem like it was going to let me do it. So it was this really weird conundrum that I found myself in. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you made the decision to reach out and talk with somebody.
Thank you.
That is the most important thing. And if there's something that we can share with viewers and listeners today, it's, we all have that place that we get to as a place of despair.
Yeah.
We're human beings, that happens. And if you find yourself in a position where you think the only way out is the final way, pick up that phone, call someone who, like you say, has belief in you, and tell them what you're thinking and get help. So I'm so glad that you did that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a lot of people say, oh, you were very courageous, or how did you have that level of vulnerability? This is what I always try to say. If life's going really well right now, you might tune out and say, well, I don't have to really worry about that. Everything's going to be fine. Now is the time to build the umbrella. You do not build the umbrella when you walk out into the storm. You build the umbrella inside where it's nice and warm and dry. That way, if and when the storm comes, you have that umbrella to deploy. So if you're in a really good place right now, now is the time to build the courage, to build the vulnerability with the people around you. And to Mary's point, if you're in that dark place, now is the time to reach out and get the support you need. Sure.
Tell us about, I'm a person who has reinvented herself a number of times. I've started 7 companies, all of them successful in their own way. And I'm very, very proud of that. And because reinvention is a process, then I happen to know that, you didn't make that phone call and then everything was okay.
Yes.
You made that phone call. That was the essential thing to do. Tell us about the next steps, the next smaller steps that you took that perhaps other people could take.
Yeah, I reached out and I got some really good advice from somebody, and that created a new perspective, and it created a different light at the end of the tunnel for me. I ended up leaving my job 3 or 4 months later and going into this quote unquote full time. And when I first left, I remember I talked to my business partner who's been coaching me and mentoring me since the beginning. And I said, okay, what do I do now? And he said, okay, well, we have to set some goals for you. So what are the goals going to be? Like, all right, here's a list. I want to grow my social media. I want to interview higher caliber people, and I want to make some money. Awesome, cool. Now we have to make sure that the habits you're practicing day in and day out are directly connected to the goals. So in the very beginning, I had this little notebook, and I had 5 habits. I would track my bank account balance. I would exercise every day. I would reach out to a member of the community, something like that every day. And every time I did it, I would give myself a little check mark. Nice. Get that dopamine rush. I did it. And then before I went to bed, I would erase them so the next day I could do the same thing. So the number one thing that has made the difference to this day, something we still do, is habit tracking. That was the first thing I did, and that has helped me tremendously because essentially habit tracking is a habit, but you can deploy all the things in there. So when I didn't feel quote unquote smart enough, I realized that I didn't really have a habit of learning. So let me put that on my habit tracker. And now I've learned every day for however many years. And that has been super, super beneficial. So that was one. And then I think maybe the simplest slash most complex one is figure out what your current identity is.
Mm-hmm.
In my story, you heard I was the kid who didn't go to college. I was the kid who didn't have a dad. I was the kid who came from a broken home. I was the kid who wasn't very smart. That eventually goes into the man who didn't have that, didn't have that, didn't have that. So maybe the first step, maybe the most challenging but obvious step is to figure out and identify who do you think you are today? Because for a lot of us, our identities are holding us back. And we're just so used to that is who I am that we can't imagine that is who I could be. So I think those are two really good places to start. And then maybe the third is evaluate your circle. Are the people in your life the best from your past? Do they work really well with who you used to be? Or are they what's best for your future? Do they work really well with the type of human that you're trying to become? That is one of the more challenging parts of this for sure. But that is something that really, really helped me grow faster. I was surrounded by people who wanted to see me do well and knew how to help me do well.
Well, that's great. And, a lot of us find ourselves, even if it's not surrounded, we find people in our lives that draw the positivity from us in a negative way.
Yes, unfortunately. Yes.
So tell us about an example of where you had someone in your life that did that and how you worked through that.
I was dating a woman and she said, I would love to meet your friends. We were relatively new dating. And I said, awesome. We'll have a cookout and I'll have a couple of my buddies there, my two closest friends at the time, and you can meet them. And she said, well, describe them. Like, give me an idea of who I'm going to meet. And I said, oh, okay. All right. The first guy, he's like my big brother. He's going to love you. He's going to make me sound way better than I am. He's going to be so interested in everything that you do. Just super easy to get along with. Just a good man. You're going to love him. And I said the second one. And then I paused. And I said, he's going to make fun of me to you. He's going to make fun of you to you. He's going to say many wildly inappropriate things. And then at the end of it, he will justify it by saying, well, that's just the way I am. And I had this moment where I said, imagine if I had a friend who had to give that disclaimer every time I was going to meet somebody new to the circle. And that literally was the day where I asked myself, is this person the best from my past or the best for my future? And I couldn't put the answer back in the box when I saw the truth. So what I call it, I reallocated time away from that person into more aligned people, places, things, ideas, and feelings. And unfortunately, that relationship has died. And I haven't talked to that person in years. And this person I was very close with. This person was like a brother to me. But we want different things out of life.
Mm-hmm.
We want to go different places. We have a different level of ownership. We have a different level of a lot of things. And I just don't think it was going to work, unfortunately. So that has been one of the downsides of this is when you're trying to grow and evolve in a certain direction, yeah, you can throw a rope around someone and try to drag them. But if they don't want to grow in that direction, you are literally doing yourself and probably them a disservice. So I think that's probably the best example I have because it's the realest, it's the most vulnerable, and it is the one that hurt the most for sure.
Well, I think about people that are watching and listening, and let me ask you this question. Are you married?
Yes.
Good for you. Good on you. I'm glad you are.
Thank you. I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful partner who somehow supports this weird thing we're trying to do.
Well, the fact that you're doing it so successfully and having the validation of internal validation of that it's right for you, I'm sure really helps.
Yes.
Now, here's a question. I was going to ask about the dynamic of romantic relationship because you brought that up a couple of times. But how does your business and focusing entirely on your business, and that's not, you haven't said that you do that, so I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Focusing very hard on your business. How did you meet your future wife while you were getting to be successful or after you became successful? And there's a reason why I asked that.
I was wildly unsuccessful for sure, unfortunately. It's very unique. My wife and I dated for not a super long time, like 6 months when I was like 27 or 28. So after this was before I started the podcast, but I went through a really rough breakup and we met and we dated, and I just was not ready for someone like her. She was just way more intelligent and just way more of an adult than I was. Then I tried dating, but I could never really find anybody who I felt like understood me. It just, they don't get me. They don't know why I'm doing this. They think this podcast is a joke. No, this is like, I'm dedicating my life to this. So then we ended up reconnecting in 2019. And I was, I mean, in $40,000 of credit card debt. When we did start dating and when we ended up moving in together, like I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't buy Christmas presents for her. It was bad in the
Wow.
beginning for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's inspiring to know that number one, you came to understand that she was the right one for you,
Yes.
and that you happened to be in a difficult place when that happened, and you worked through that because it's the reason why it's inspiring is that all of us get into difficult situations and circumstances,
Mm.
and we should perhaps give some thought to, a lot of people just push people away during periods like that because we are busy trying to manage it. We're embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
We have all of these thoughts and feelings, and it doesn't really include other people. Good for you
Thank you.
that you were able to, what is her name?
Her name is Taryn.
Karen or
Ta-
Taryn?
Taryn.
You and Taryn, Kevin, came together at exactly the right time.
I believe that. I believe that. And now, again, I am not close to perfect by any stretch of the imagination. To the point that you made, there are still times where I am pushing too hard in business where we have to have a conversation because we haven't been on a date in a month. We do our best to design our days. So I wake up at 6 o'clock almost every day and I go to the gym. That's like the first thing I do. That's my pillar. So the morning is usually for me. I go exercise, I take care of myself, I do my morning routine. From realistically like 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., I'm in the office at home. I have a home office, so that makes it nice. And then from 6 o'clock on, I'm supposed to be with my wife. But we do an episode every day and we have 100 and something clients. 6 o'clock doesn't happen very often, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So right now we're in a very focused season of business growth, and it's very hard to juggle everything, and it's very easy to prioritize one thing over others. So I think to your point, we are pushing very, very hard, and there are detriments of that. I have not figured out how to juggle everything eloquently yet. I drop balls all the time. I just try to make sure that the ones I drop are not the ones that are going to shatter. But it is, there's a lot going on, and unfortunately at times things do get overlooked, and you need that painful reminder of, hey, we haven't gone on a date in 4 weeks. We need to get our stuff together here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I certainly understand that, because as a 7-time entrepreneur, I'm single.
Okay.
There's a lot to be said for being single, I can tell you that. But I also truly, truly do understand the responsibilities and the pressures that bring to bear in the family situation.
Yeah.
So good for you that you have regular date nights, and sounds like you're due one to have some fun.
We are due. Well, we've actually been trending up. It's been good. We had
Oh, good.
a check-in. We used to, but we've been slipping on this too. Every Sunday we would sit down and check in. How are we doing? What needs are being met? What needs aren't being met? What do we want more of? What do we want less of? And yeah, the last check-in was we haven't had a date in it's been a minute. It's been a minute. So we have to dial that back in, but at the end of the day, you're going to get feedback in everything: health, wealth, love, life, friendships, whatever. You're going to get feedback, and you can either decide to get it little by little along the way, or you get it all at once at the end. And
Mhm.
I think as a human, I'm guilty of both of those for sure. But the goal is to get it little by little so I can be more proactive as opposed to 100% reactive.
Mhm.
But
Well,
easier said than done.
one of the questions that I was going to ask you is, you talk a lot about consistency, and for people who have lost their motivation or their faith in themselves,
Mm.
how important is consistency, and how can we regain that?
I think it's everything, because if you really want to accomplish, think of it this way: if you want to walk across the country, there's a couple ways to do it. You can walk however far you feel every day. Okay. You can say, I'm going to walk 100 miles every day, no matter what. Okay. Or you can do it in a number of ways. I'm willing to bet the person who is most likely going to succeed is the person who is most consistent with a plan. I just think that is the way it works. The analogy I always use is I can't do the splits right now. So if you said, hey, Kev, I have $1 million. If you can do the splits by this time next year, I'll give you $1 million. Logically, what is the best way to do that? It's probably for me to practice it a little bit every day. But if I get lazy and I say, you know what, I'll do it once a week, as consistency goes down, so doesn't the probability of me accomplishing the goal. And I think it's like that for everything. So yeah, consistency, it's not just the practice of doing it. It is the belief you have in the thing that you're doing. That's a piece of it. It's the lessons that you learn. It's the things that you overcome. And maybe the biggest piece is it essentially becomes your identity. If you're somebody who has smoked 4 cigarettes in your life, you probably do not identify as a smoker. If you're somebody who smokes a cigarette every day, 5, 10, 15 a day, you probably have the identity of a smoker. That's because you do it very consistently. So yeah, I think it's everything. I think it is very hard to succeed without it. A couple ways to do it. One, find accountability. Most humans, wrong or indifferent, will do more for other people than they would do for themselves. So find some positive people that you're okay with putting leverage in their hands. Be careful, but that's a good place to start. The other thing, and this has worked really well for me because I'm somebody who is relatively money driven, I was not as consistent in the gym as I wanted to be because the business was kicking my butt. So I went to my wife and I said, I need you to do me a favor. And she said, sure, what is it? I gave her $100 bill. I said, if I don't go to the gym 7 days in a row, I need you to take this $100 bill and I need you to rip it up in front of me. And she said, there's no way I'm going to do that. And I said, you don't have to, because in my mind, I just leverage that against myself and I have enough necessity. I'm not going to miss. I went to the gym 7 days in a row and I got my $100 back. Awesome. So that is something called a commitment device.
Mhm.
Essentially, we create more discomfort for not doing the thing than it requires to do the thing. So that's another important one. And then essentially putting those two together, you find a peak performance partner who is along the journey with you. One of the best parts of having a personal trainer is not necessarily that they're a genius when it comes to exercise. It's that they're there every day waiting for you. And when there's somebody waiting for you, you're more likely to do that thing. So I think those are all really important because, to your point, you're not going to be motivated all the time.
Mhm.
You're going to be motivated occasionally, and you're going to have to force yourself and leverage yourself and create necessity. But yeah, those are the biggest 3 we have seen. And to that end, we literally say in the intro of our podcast, 7 days a week. At the end, every time we log off, I say, make sure you tune in tomorrow because we will be here every single day to help you get to your goals. It's in the identity. It's in the messaging. We say it publicly. So that has been very, very helpful for us for sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for being with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I would hang out with you all day.
Well, thanks. Back at you. Is there anything that you would, more you would like to share as we wrap up here?
So we talked a lot about self-belief. Self-belief is essentially your belief in your ability to build something in the external world. The other half of that I don't think gets talked about enough is self-worth. Self-worth is the ability to accurately value yourself in the grand scheme of things. So I had a client one time who said, I just don't feel like I believe in myself enough. And I remember saying, that's not it. That is not it. You might have more self-belief than I do. That's not it. I said, all right, let's walk through something. I said, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you believe in your own unique ability to create something in the external world? So let's imagine you're building a castle. Do you believe you can build the castle? A beautiful moat. It's got a beautiful view. It's brick by brick. It's amazing. And he smiled. He said, 12 out of 10. I know I can build the castle. Love it. Love it. Cool. After you build that castle, and the day comes where you're allowed to walk into that castle and make that castle your home and set it up the way that you want it to be set up, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you feel like you deserve to live there? How much do you feel like when people come over, you can set the boundary of, hey, take your shoes off and don't spill beer all over the carpet? And he smiled. He said, maybe like a 2 out of 10. And I said, this is not a self-belief issue. This is a self-worth issue. Self-belief is I can create it. Self-worth is I deserve to have it after it's created. So I think that's an important thing to understand. One of the reasons a lot of relationships don't work is because somebody has very low self-worth and the other person knows that and they take advantage of them. One of the things we've seen across the board is oftentimes when one partner's self-worth increases, they leave the other partner because the only reason they were with them is because they didn't think they could get quote unquote better or whatever it is, better treatment. So yeah, self-belief is half the game, maybe a third of the game. Self-worth is another piece, and then self-awareness is another big chunk. So I would add that just to make sure it's a well-rounded episode.
Well, great. Great. I feel like it's been well-rounded.
Good. That's the goal always, right? We want to holistic.
We started in the basement below rock bottom, and we ended up.
We ended up in the castle.
We ended up in the castle.
We ended up in the castle.
Kevin Palmieri, thank you so much for joining today.
It was my pleasure.
I'm Mary McCorvey from Experience Over Expectation, where we encourage you to let go of the grand plan and live on your terms. Thanks. And oh, by the way, pick up the book. It's on Amazon or wherever you get your books. Experience Over Expectation. Have a fantastic day.
You've been listening to Mary McCorvey's Experience Over Expectations podcast. Be sure to subscribe today on YouTube and Substack, or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in.